Before I start off this video, I should warn you that the script for it was made in July. That means that some of the issues I'm gonna discuss here are actually somewhat fixed at the time of editing this. Whenever I mention something that's been fixed, I'll put up a note in the video. Uni stuff happened and it took me really long to actually get to editing. However, I still decided to release this video because I didn't want to let my work go to waste. With that being said, hope you enjoyed the video. As I was watching Summer Game Fest hoping to see anything of interest, one game has caught my attention. The game in question is called Unbeatable, and overall it's a rhythm game that's set in the world where music is illegal. So I thought to myself, how bad can it be? I mean, we got generally great music, Muse Dash is a great game, and people around are also saying it's actually a great game. So I've downloaded the demo, played it for 10 or so minutes, and at that point I already started to realize that there's so much wrong here. Wait, that's not right. First and foremost, I gotta say that most of the things I'm gonna cover are something that can actually be fixed pretty easily, and while on their own they might not be that big of a deal, there are so much of them here that the entire image just falls apart. So with that being said, let's see what's actually wrong here. Let's start off with the controls. The first thing that you encounter when you launch the game for the first time is the so-called tutorial of this game. Right off the bat, we're starting to encounter issues. Instead of a traditional approach with the tutorial, the game decides to teach you the basics through trial and error. You get thrown into the chart, a note gets thrown at you, and right when you miss it, the game tells you which button to press. This happens with every note you miss or incorrectly press, every single time. With that, the chart also gets immediately paused, and that breaks flow really badly. This approach is really confusing. There is no flow, and it also doesn't help much with getting comfortable with timing windows. In that tutorial, you also discover that the high notes have an extra button on each side for what reason exactly? By the way, the keys displayed are out of order. The entire tutorial is really confusing, and it takes a player way longer to understand the basics compared to a normal tutorial, not to mention how frustrating it is. It kinda sucks how this is your first introduction to the game. This game clearly took inspiration from Muse Dash, with Muse Dash clearly taking inspiration from Taiko no Tatsujin, and if you were to play Taiko in any way with a keyboard, you know the common layout, DK for blue notes and FJ for red notes. It very much works, it's intuitive because it kinda mimics how the actual Taiko drum controller works. Now, when it comes to Muse Dash, the layout is actually JK for ground notes and DF for sky notes. At this point you gotta understand that while Muse Dash did take inspiration from Taiko, it's very much not Taiko at all, and you'd get that after you play it for a while. When it comes to Unbeatable, this game took inspiration from Muse Dash's grid, but kept the Taiko controls. This doesn't really work. I thought it's just a me thing, but then I came to watch Tokaku stream this game, and she was pretty much of the same opinion.
Press JF KIDE to attack. Okay, this is a really confusing tutorial. JF... what? KIDE to jump. KIDE. I don't understand the controls at all.
I think it has to do with intuitivity. Is that a word? Simplicity of the controls. Muse Dash's layout has your entire right hand for the ground and your entire left hand for the sky. With Unbeatable, it's kinda scrambled. I don't really know how to put this. The controls are just, well, unintuitive. This entire issue could easily be fixed if you could just flat out change the controls to your liking, but the controls in Unbeatable are unfortunately fixed, so you're pretty much stuck with this situation. With what we have now though, the controls for this game have a lot of problems, and the game doesn't really do a great job at introducing you to those controls either. Now, let's talk about perception. And by perception, I mean how the player would perceive the game visually, which would include reading and just how easy it is to digest what's happening on the screen in the game. But before I go back to Unbeatable, let's take a look at Muse Dash again. See how all the ground notes have a pinkish palette, while the sky notes have a bluish palette. This is something that's called color coding. It's used sorta as an aid for you to read the chart better, and in Muse Dash it works really well. Unbeatable doesn't have that. All the notes are white, however that's not the entire issue. Let's take a look at hold notes. Here for example, we can see that the blue trail indicates that you gotta, well, hold it. First of all, it's really thin for no reason, because of which I often just don't notice the trail at all. But then we pay attention that sometimes the effects from hitting a note get in the way of it, and sometimes they also bear a blue color. This often led me to randomly letting go of the hold note, and it's so annoying. The game has a lot of trouble with visual cues in general. It took me a while to notice that there was actually a health bar on top of you because of how much it blends with the background, as well as that there's a cue that warns you about a side switch. Ultimately, Unbeatable is struggling a lot visually. Its unreadability makes the game really not fun. Speaking of side switches, this is actually a mechanic that's not in Muse Dash. The concept of it is pretty good, however I don't really like how they implemented it here. First of all, I still cannot figure out the pattern for those. For me they just seem kinda random. Then we have the process of the switch itself. The problem with it is that in the charts there's no pause between side switches, so you have notes already coming at you from the other side while the camera still moves. Then we also have the parts where you actually have to hit the notes from both sides, and here comes another issue with this game, which is a locked scroll speed. The problem with the double-sided parts is that you effectively cut your reading space in half, so to speak, but the chart still goes at the same speed, making the entire thing much harder to read. Let's take a look at a Taiko fun chart of Pandora Paradox by Curin0503 that does pretty much the same thing, but does it right.
What? How do you do that? What?
Okay, so a few things to point out here. First of all, we can see that the double-sided part truly starts when the hit window comes to a full stop. Then we can see that the chart is slowed down compared to the usual speed, which makes this part more readable. Finally, while the hit section comes back to its place, you don't have to hit anything. While the notes are sent at you, you can visually read them, and they are timed to be hit only at the point where the hit window comes to a full stop, after which the chart proceeds like normal. This, in my opinion, is how it should be done, and hopefully the charters will master that idea when the game releases. With what we have now though, generally Unbeatable's charts are not utilizing the game's mechanics properly, and instead of making the game more fun, those mechanics just become a pain for the player. Wrapping this up, I gotta say that this game has a lot of potential. Again, the music is great. The story is fairly interesting, the concepts are promising. However, in its current state, it's really flawed, and I really hope that DSL would eventually fix everything by the time it releases. $30 is a great price for a game like this, and in the end, it will hopefully be well worth it. As for me, I think I've said everything that I wanted to say. Thank you very much for watching this video in its entirety. If you'd like to discuss anything I was talking about, I'd be really happy to receive a comment from you. For now though, I am signing out. Best of luck to you, enjoy your rhythm games!